There we go. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Spin Legal this evening on September the 18th, 2024. So we're going to review a few legal stories today, legal stories in the news, and slightly different tune today. So just to remind everybody, if you need to contact Invictus Legal, you can do so on 905-688-5598. You can email Angela at angela@weareinvictus.legal or me at peter@weareinvictus.legal, or go to our website at weareinvictus.legal. There you go. Okay, so thanks everybody. Okay, so here's some of the news stories in the news. So first one here is the Ontario Superior Court finds negligence in the treatment of asthma attack leading to a brain injury. So basically, this is relating to somebody going into a hospital who had an asthma attack. And when she went into hospital, this is October 2014. So she arrived at the hospital at 4:30 p.m. Physicians saw her administered some treatments. Doesn't exactly say when. Transferred to ICU about 9 o'clock. But the internist assessed the patient at 6 p.m., decided to admit her to intensive care about 7 p.m., and ordered additional treatments of epinephrine sometime about 9 p.m. She was transferred to ICU about 9:40, and at some point her symptoms worsened, and the internist decided to prepare to intubate her sometime after 11, and at 12 midnight, a respiratory therapist performed intubation on the third attempt post-intubation, and the patient was difficult to ventilate. That sounds pretty damn bad, wouldn't you say?
That is bad.
Yeah. So the court found that the standard of care was breached. Hey, is that a surprise to, with the facts we've just read?
Very much.
It's
How young was this person, or how old?
that I didn't see that as we were coming in, but no indication of age. No, nothing in the story about
Because in
age.
general, with this type of law, when it's a personal injury, the younger they are and the more money they make and how much they lose, the bigger damages that are awarded. So this is, but it's very serious.
Yeah. Oh, it's and this is going back a while. So people have been stating, about the poor state of our health system, and we hear about people complaining about OHIP almost every day, don't we? But
Oh
this
yeah,
is 2014, so it's not just yesterday.
7 hour waits in the emergency.
Yeah.
And as
Well,
Doug Ford calls hallway medicine, which is becoming more popular ever since he got elected.
hallway medicine's unfortunately hallway medicine's been around for a long time,
Yeah,
right?
more popular now.
So if when I had my own emergency back in 2015, I ended up in the hallway for a period of time, and boy, when you're blind and that hallway kind of sounds, it seems as if every person is rushing right past your bed
Yeah.
when you can't see a damn thing. It's
Mhm.
annoying, but okay, that's not the same kind of thing as happened here. So
Yeah, this one ended up in very serious circumstances.
with a brain injury.
Yeah, she ended up with a brain injury, probably from anoxia with lack of oxygen
Yeah, yeah.
because they were improperly ventilating.
And the court basically found that the hospital breached the standard of care for her.
There's a number of things, there's a number of failures on their part where they've looked at it. Failure to call the intensivist earlier, their delay in making the decision to intubate, and their failure to ensure intubation was done by the most experienced clinician available. where you have to actually get a respiratory therapist. My son was talking to me, he's into nursing. He was talking to me that during COVID, it's not the nurses that do this. They have respiratory therapists on staff that do the
Yeah, yeah.
intubation.
And okay, so there's and just to break some molds here. Let's be clear. Around here, they joke about how bad St. Catherine's and Niagara hospitals are, and that these people are, they don't have enough of these people in the accident emergency wards. Are these people in those A&E departments?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so they are there all the time, 24/7. The person who intubates.
Yep, they are in there, and yeah.
So the internist would also be there. There'd be an internist available to the in the accident emergency department all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right.
they should have somebody there, like at least a couple of people who do this, like a respiratory therapist. You never know. During COVID, these people were pretty active.
Yeah. Of course, during COVID, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, these respiratory
Absolutely.
therapists.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, they would be.
Yeah, his son was telling me about how they had different personnel every time somebody had to go into the ICU for different things, and he was telling me about it, and it's scary. It's scary. And then you have your life like this. And then this person was an asthma attack. An
Yeah.
asthma attack could have been 99.9% of the time would have been treated without incident.
I was going to say, because asthma is one of these sort of things that hospitals get these, 20 a week kind of thing, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon. And
Yeah.
okay, I grant that every once in a while an unusual type of asthma attack may occur, but why didn't this just follow the standard pattern?
Yeah, exactly. Like I remember when I got sick with pulmonary embolism. I had all the symptoms. I couldn't breathe. I had to cough, 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 cough. I had pain. And I thought my asthma was making a real big comeback after 40 years. Doctor said, she checked me out. She said, no, it's not asthma. She said, then I got to the hospital and found out it was the blood clot. Got treated for it, recovered. But this is where these medical people, they have to be very, very careful when they make these things and carefully make sure you have a checklist beside you when things are going on inside your head. This got to be done, this got to be done, this got to be done, so forth. And when you go through that checklist and you go through with the proper speed and expedition, you probably will be okay. And people will have good outcomes.
So the court found that basically a standard of care was breached in three distinct areas. First, the court was talking about the adequate record keeping by the internist. The records contain troubling omissions on aspects such as arterial blood gas tests and the timing of arterial line insertion. And the hospital's IT issues potentially arose from a scheduled routine system maintenance that did not exclude these shortcomings. Okay, so there were computer problems at the time as well, but which basically delayed the putting in of the the saving of the records, which doesn't help anybody.
And then secondly, the court found that the internist only consulted the on-call intensivist at 1 a.m.
1 a.m.
The severity of the patient's condition. This unreasonable delay deprived the patient of the chance to get timely benefit from the intensivist's expertise, the court said. A reasonable internist would have called the intensivist by 10 p.m., which was about the time that her symptoms became worse.
Exactly. And the question here is that even notwithstanding the IT issues there should have been paper backup for all of this stuff,
Absolutely.
right? And hey, I'm an IT person, but you got to always assume that something goes wrong, and paper backups an essential. So third thing, the court determined that the internist also unreasonably delayed the decision to intubate until 11 p.m. The internist could have executed just before or after the patient was transferred to ICU, and once the internist did make the decision to intubate, she was responsible for entering that decision and would be executed quickly. So
Yep.
delays all the way down the line here.
Oh my God, how did that happen? But it happens. Fortunately, it doesn't happen often, but it happens.
Yeah.
Okay, there's another malpractice type of thing we
Yeah,
have.
there is. The next one is the Ontario Superior Court approved a $4.5 million settlement for in a complex medical malpractice case. So that one here, realistically, so this is Hughes and the Peterborough Regional Health Centre, which is a 2024 decision, included the regional health centre, two paediatricians who provided medical care to an infant during admission in December of 2006. The baby was delivered without complications, but developed nasal congestion, cough, and poor feeding on December 20th. So the next day, he was admitted to the Peterborough Regional Healthcare for an infection with respiratory
The syncytial virus.
Thank you. Thank you. Some of these medical terms, you know, I don't get. Don't
Yep.
really know
Or
it.
RSV, as it's commonly known.
RSV. Okay. All right. Yep. Well, there you go. So, so tell me about what happened here then.
Okay, so according to medical evidence, the now 17-year-old boy who was that infant, he has something called hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, allegedly due to the care that he had received during his hospital stay when he was 2 weeks old.
That
This
sounds
disability led to cognitive delays, behavioral issues, and intellectual and psychological impairments.
yeah.
So this created some issues with, again, poor care and with the infection and probably delays in treating it or maybe the wrong method of treating. So they went there and they had neuroaudiologists' evidence, which can prove the injuries alleged that the plaintiffs did not lead to the brain injury that resulted in the boy's challenges. So they're going back and forth, but they settled. It didn't go to trial. It was Gluckstein personal injury lawyers who handled the claim on behalf of the plaintiff, which is interesting because they do a lot of research and a lot of litigation around brain injury. And they actually have some work done around here too with the Ontario Brain Injury Association.
Well, I was going to say the other thing about this is that when you read about him, and this all occurred when he was 2 weeks old, and he's been growing up with behavioral issues. That's
Yep.
a clear
Mhm.
brain injury type thing, isn't it? Type concern.
Yep. So what they had is that he would be getting the getting damages like as he grows, and this is like in a sort of a split settlement where he gets money every so often, where he gets um, partial payments like every year,
Well,
annuities I think they call them,
yeah,
and
there's basically
structured settlement.
he'll be getting payments for the rest of his
Yeah,
life.
exactly. Because the thing is, he may not be able to work. He may not be able to support himself, and he may require some care that he would not normally have. So this is the type of thing that happens. But notice that this is stuff that you start the litigation and it goes on for a long time. And if they get awarded 4.5, don't forget the lawyers take a certain portion.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so what's left over, then it goes into the pot for the parties'
Well,
claims
and actually, here's the key factor about this. This originally occurred in 2006, I believe.
yeah.
This issue occurred in 2006. He's now 17 years old, and he's going to be suffering for the rest of his life. This individual. So it's taken 17 years to get to the court.
hmm And this is a very serious condition, hypoxic ischemic
Yeah. Oh,
encephalopathy,
yeah.
which is very serious brain injury, and that cannot be treated.
Yeah. And okay, so the big question there is this kind of terminal? Is he going to be living till 85, or is his life expectancy lower?
It might lower his expectancy, but not to like he's not going to die at 30 or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But he will always need some
But
care.
his quality of life is
Yeah,
ruined, basically.
yeah,
So he's
because
not
he'll
gonna,
probably have to live in some
yeah,
kind of care facility,
yeah. So
say
he's
a
not
group home or something, and work, or his parents, or have somebody looking after him because he may not have. He'll have some things, but as long as he has the proper supports around him, he may have some quality of life. So this is going to be a very expensive adventure.
I was just going to say, and there's sort of things. So it sounds like he probably won't have normal relations with people, like he won't get married and things like that. Won't have friends and things like that. Would
Not
be very
likely.
tough.
Not
Highly
likely.
unlikely. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And this is
and
one of the things too that happens. Again, this is another thing. It rarely happens, but this is another incident where something happened, and I'm glad that something came back. Although no amount of money in the world can ever
oh,
fix
no,
what has happened.
yeah,
But this is how the court system deals with things. They don't make people suffer in purgatory forever, but they solve things by ordering money damages to be paid to the wronged party.
and it's often weird when we talk about money and damages, amounts paid out. Because that doesn't actually resolve the issue, does it?
A lot of times, like you're
Money
fired
doesn't.
from your job. Like you had the dream job and you were there for 5 years and then you get fired from your job and now you got to say bye to your colleagues, bye to everybody, and now you're having a hard time finding another job,
Yeah.
and you have a hard time getting up out of bed in the morning. Yes, you can get paid a good severance, because there's some laws on the books that favor employees who are put in that situation. But the thing is, still, that's not going to get you a job and not going to get you back into a dream job right away. Right? So
And
these are things that why we look at the legal system the way it is. The legal system does what is possible. It doesn't have a magic wand. It doesn't have anything like that can make things happen.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about that is that dream job, especially, you just had that dream job that you were just talking about, but the time at which you got fired, you've been in that dream job for the last 15 years, and now you're 55 when they fire you.
Yep,
Even more troublesome, right?
yep. And then there will probably be a higher severance anyways because of the age factor.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
I just looking at this type of stuff that these things happen, and generally, the more younger you are in a personal injury claim, and in terms of your
Well,
age and your earning potential that you could have in your life, your quality of life, and also care requirements, that's what determines the damages here. If you're older and you don't really have any income that you earn, like say you're already on an old age pension and then you get injured, there's less damages generally. So these sorts of things get figured out that way.
but I was just going to say this particular reward is high because of the fact that this was a baby who will suffer for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And he's only 17 years into what might well be, say, 50, 60, you know,
hmm Thank God
another
they settled, because if they
another
had a
30
jury,
years.
believe me, that would
Yeah,
be a really big whopper of a judgment.
yeah. And the other question, for example, don't expect, if you're, sometimes, as you said, what you're earning can impact, or what you're earning, what your job is, can impact your thing, as well as your age. So, for example, if you're earning, if you're in your 20s, early 20s, and you get a serious injury, and you were in a job as, I don't know, let's say a chief finance officer or something, because you did particularly well at school, so you got promoted to chief finance officer very, very quickly. So but you're 28 and you're a CFO, right? The chances are that the ward's going to be much higher for somebody like that who gets a big injury than for somebody who's like 64 and has been a garbage man all their life.
Yep. Or a security guard or whatever, and then he's retired.
Yeah.
And he's living on a pension.
And we're not talking about the abilities of said people here.
Yeah, it's not based on the value. This is where a lot of people confuse. It has nothing to do with the value of their life, but part of this is contributed to pain and suffering. Part of it's delivered to care. Part of it is also, a big part is also due to replacement of earnings that are lost and economic potential.
Yeah.
So this is why we say this, and that's why the courts think this way.
And that particular CFO example that I used, the CFO in his mid to late 20s, he's got expected loss that's a lot of money over the next 30 years.
Yeah, right? And this is why when you do these tort claims, there's different types of tort claims. Like if it was a car accident or something, a lot of these tort claims, like we have two types of claims we have in Ontario. One's called the accident benefits, which is the treatment side of it, and it's no fault. Regardless of whether you're 100% at fault or you don't have any fault at all, you are eligible for that. As long as you got an accident, the injuries were caused by the accident, and then you get those. But there's some limits of the no-fault insurance. And then with the tort, then you have to prove that your injuries pass a certain threshold, and that the other side has exhibited a certain degree of negligence, and that you didn't contribute to your negligence. Okay? Like there's a lot of times people don't wear a seatbelt, and or they ride recklessly on a motorbike and they don't wear a helmet, things like that, and they're asking for it in case they get injured. They may not get the type of award that they would get otherwise if they had taken the precautions.
Okay. Okay, so the next one we've got here is a federal court upholds the denial of refugee claims based upon insufficient evidence of persecution by the claimant from back home. So, and just to recap on this one, is that in order to be a refugee, there's only one status of refugee in the world, and there's no such thing as realistically an economic refugee. If you're a refugee, you are fleeing because you could face persecution at home. Yep. And essentially what has happened here is the federal court has decided that if you don't have evidence of persecution, you could be sent back.
Yeah, and this is stuff like there are countries that are recognized as refugee-producing countries because, for example, they may be perpetually at war with other people, or they may have a civil war going on, or they may be in the throes of some kind of dictatorship or coup d'etat.
Yeah, a couple of current examples of some of those might well be some people in Gaza, might well be some people in Ukraine. Maybe people who are in refugee camps in Turkey, or Syrian refugees in Turkey and the like. Right. Although the question does get asked about some of these refugees after a conflict has ceased for a period of time, as to whether should they be going back home.
Some of them do, and many of them do. Yeah. They go back home after the war is over. And then there's other situations where they're under a government. Like right now, what's happening in parts of Europe, they've elected some governments who are actually downtrodden and reversing many of the rights that people have hard long fought for. And this is an issue that some people are facing particularly. It may not be for everybody that would be considered a refugee from that country, but maybe people who are in right seeking groups that are particularly offended by the way the way certain things are dealt with. Like, for example, if you're in a minority religious group and a government came in that decides that you're in the wrong religion, they're going to ban you, or if you are in an LGBTQ situation, they may decide that they're going to be treating you particularly horrible, that sort of thing. Okay, so, but of course, if you're not in any of these situations, that everything may be okay in that country. So these are things that we have to keep an eye for. So this is what causes it. It causes and how these refugees get produced. Okay, they come from somewhere, and things are being done that create these refugees. And when they come, so when someone comes, they have to show some kind of documentation or some kind of evidence that they've been part of that country, and that perhaps their life or their family lives might be at risk if they do stay in that country or return there. So this is where they have to have that, and they do have a board. They go on the first level with the immigration, and then they go up to another level for immigration review, and then there's an appeals board for immigration appeals, and then after that it's federal court. So these are things that that this person has obviously went up the food chain, and then they were denied.
Yeah, and
So
they
it tells you that Canada doesn't just let anybody in. Okay? People always think, oh, Canada's letting anybody in who claims refugee status. That's not necessarily true. Everybody is checked. All of their claims have to be checked.
Yeah, and this individual basically he appeared on the TV series and that portrayed the Pakistani military fighting against certain militia groups. His telefilm, allegedly aired in early 2018, portrayed a man misled by the militant movement into participating in the suicide bombing. The applicant claimed that he later received death threats from supposed members of these groups. And in June of 2018, while he was on his way to the police station to file a report, unknown gunmen allegedly shot at his vehicle, and he crashed the car and suffered injuries. All right, so he then moved to other cities in Pakistan. And okay, we know that Pakistan, the situation in Pakistan is quite serious.
Yep, there are serious issues there.
Yeah.
No kidding. But this person has to show how they are particularly affected, or their family.
Yeah.
Okay? And many times they are, but many times the majority of people, for example, could live okay in the particular area, but sometimes there are certain groups that may be particularly persecuted.
Well, I was going to say, it sounds like he's participated in some of these things that Canada would see as illegal.
Yep. And they also cannot be considered a refugee if they're part of a terrorist operation.
Yeah.
Okay, so
when you add all of that together, it sounds as if it sounds as if the right decision has been made, because clearly he wasn't the right kind of person that we should be considering in relation to any type of case of this nature.
Yeah, and this is where you have to
And we've had, let's face it, we've had some decisions by immigration refugee the immigration refugee board and courts that have not done well to people who were good active members of society, who had jobs, they had families to raise, they had ties to the local community, and they've been deported. Such people.
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Or they come into this country and start breaking our laws, and they go.
Well, yeah. Well, I
These
was going
things
to
are
say,
actually carried out. Like, people think that we have a country that's filled with undocumented refugees all over the place. They don't. Hey, these things, they do have a process. People have to go through a process.
but
Hey,
but
someone's
again,
claiming asylum at the border. Okay, did we have to go through a process? There's a first step, a second step, and then you go up to the IRB, and then after that, it's a federal court.
well,
Hey,
what a lot of people complain about is the fact that many of these people come to the border. They complain, particularly when Roxham Road was open,
oh yeah,
complain about a particular issue that they have.
yeah. Bring Dave Wheeler on here. He'll tell us all about Roxham Road.
And essentially, what the claims were by many is that people would come in, they would not have a genuine refugee situation, but that the Canadians would let them in, and then they'd shove them off to somewhere like Niagara Falls or something,
Yeah,
right?
they all get shoved off to Niagara Falls because
I don't
this is
think
where
so.
the land of opportunity is.
I don't think so somehow.
Yeah,
Anyway, so the point being is that, and some people would have you believe that, in fact, actually, many refugees will just disappear into the system, and and just get lost. Will work as Canadians. Will get get their status somehow, and just never leave the country again.
yeah. Well, something's going to come up. They have to somehow present themselves. They have an accident. They go to the hospital.
Mm.
They have to sign up or apply for a job somewhere. They have to have work. Somebody requires ID. If they want to drive a car, they're going to have a driver's license because police like to stop people on the road sometimes. Things like that. So they're going to have to show themselves sometime.
But this is a federal court denial of a refugee claim,
Yep.
right?
Yep, because
So
it's federal law that
yeah,
they're claiming.
let's be very, very clear about that. It's come from a federal court.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's beyond the IRB.
Yeah.
Obviously, this person has been through the Immigration and Refugee Board at both the general and appellate level, and has gone on to the board, gone on to the court.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on, there's another interesting one that's about immigration as well. An Ottawa Court of Appeal has ordered a child's return to Texas from Toronto under the Hague Convention. And basically, what happened here is that the mother, so under the Convention for Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction, which is part of one of the many Hague Conventions, the mother basically flew off with her child from Texas to Toronto, brought her here, and of course and the facts of the matter is that clearly the father must have had custody, or there must have been shared
Yep.
custody,
Hmm.
and she decided to take him out of the country. The child, I said him, take the child out of the country. And I don't know that the child's sex was disclosed, and basically the father, sought to be reunited.
Yep. And this is one of the things that does happen sometimes, parental abductions. And this one was like not only crossing state lines, but crossing border lines, and probably involved quite a bit of different officials, including the FBI, Interpol, and other police forces, and then back in Canada again to do this. The Hague Convention. This is like an international group of countries that agree with each other that if somebody's going to be taking a child somewhere that they're not supposed to go, and then somebody finds them, then this is how they begin the process to bring the child back to where the child is supposed to be. It's this is amazing when you get law enforcement working together like that.
Well, yeah, and the interesting thing is about that is that you think about it that you know we always get very concerned about child abductions, and there are conventions about that we basically must we must obey. And I think it's important that we understand, what happens. There's a process when they're not obeyed.
Yeah, and then there's the Amber Alert system that wakes you up at 3 in the morning with your cell phone going blaring up full blast. So that there's some child up in BC somewhere that got abducted, but they're still blaring our phones here in Ontario.
Well, all right, was going to be. It's like, yeah, my phone hasn't moved for the last 6 hours, and I'm 500 miles minimum away from the point of that call. But yeah, I get the Amber Alert for something. Yeah. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, but that's part of the whole process. Hey, this had to do with, I think it was Amber Hagerman a long time ago. She was kidnapped, and then they had the Amber Alert, and they found her. You know,
Is that
and
how
it's a lot of these things are a result of parental abductions.
Yeah, is that how it's
The
done?
stranger abductions are actually rare. People think that that there's all these boogeymen out there that go into playgrounds and school grounds and that, and they kidnap children,
Well,
and they take them into their white vans and stuff like that.
there was one like that a couple of years ago that involved a father in Niagara. And
Yep.
what it turned out was that the father was supposed to return the child to, I think, Brampton. Somehow rings a bell, but he broke down as he was leaving Fort Erie, and in an awkward part of of our road system, and didn't get found for hours. And he's like, yeah, I'm dead in the water here. And hey,
No cell service, nothing.
yeah, no cell service, no nothing, and I can't get my child back to his mother.
Oh yes, I remember that. That's
It
that's
was,
horrible. Wouldn't you hate to
yeah,
be in that situation?
yeah. And of course, the first thing they did when the police came is, of course, they arrested him because they have to,
Yep, they
right?
have to because
Um,
he's in violation.
and
And
then
then they
and
take
then
him in, and he has a chance to tell his
yeah,
story.
and then of course they just basically realized what the current situation was. They helped him fix the car while they returned the child, which I
Yeah.
don't think was ever an issue in that particular case,
Mhm.
right? Okay. So the other one that we had here was the Law Society had recently had its Law Society of Ontario had its recent um, annual AGM, uh, annual AGM, right? And they released their annual report. And one of the things about this is that they were saying a couple of things here to note. There are 43,000 lawyers and 4,600 paralegals currently practicing law or providing legal services in Ontario, right? The average age for lawyers is 48 and 42 for paralegals. Among lawyers, 47% are women, 52% male. But paralegals, 68% are women with 31% male. There's a gap of 1% there. What's going on? 1% of lawyers and paralegals identify themselves as non-binary.
Ooh, yeah.
Um, and that's a kind of, okay. I suppose that's the 1% I was just talking about, the gap between them.
Yeah. Yeah, and some people say I prefer not to say.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we have to fill out these surveys every year about things. Do you identify as this Aboriginal? Do you identify as
It's okay. I identify as Martian Londoner.
Yeah, yeah. You filled out all of them, eh? Said you identified of all of them, eh?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
black, white, purple, and blue. Yeah,
yeah,
green blood. Don't forget the green blood.
yeah. And it's very interesting when they talk about things that the majority of complaints brought to the Law Society, as terms of the percentage of practicing lawyers, is actually higher among lawyers than there are about paralegals. Okay, so 5.3% of lawyers that are practicing have received some kind of complaint. and 2.4% of paralegals who are practicing have also received some type of complaint. Complaints generally, when they're received by the Law Society, do not always mean that they're going to end up getting into some serious hearing or anything like that. And from what I hear, I think about 5-10% of them may get to that far, and many of them are settled
And
before they get to a point of where somebody actually gets publicly disciplined at a hearing.
Yeah, the other thing about complaints. So there were 6,488 complaints last year in 2023, and of those complaints, 90, probably something in the region of 90 to 95% of them are because lawyers or paralegals didn't communicate clearly with their clients.
They didn't answer the phone, is one. Or they did not give me an update. I've been emailing them 17 times a day and they did not respond.
Yeah.
Or they, when I asked them about something and left a message, they took 2 weeks to get back to me. That's not a good habit to have. So if you're a lawyer or paralegal, get back, answer the phone. Even if you just have to send an email or something, try to answer the question. This is just customer service. It's just good business practice.
Well, the truth of the matter is that you can't always answer everybody the same day as they call.
Yeah, because if we get 42 calls in a day, and am I going to answer every single one of those 42 calls?
Oh, yes, absolutely you are.
Yeah.
I'm not answering any one of them. You know that. You know
Yeah,
that.
because most of them are spammers anyways, a lot of them. or they're some of Peter's fans, eh? Peter has a lot of fans.
But anyway, the whole point about a lot of that is that you do answer. I had an interesting call today, and there's a lot, and you taking calls, is about what this business is all about.
Yeah, it is, because we're in the business of serving the public, which means we have to be open to the public to come in and talk to us, ask questions. Some of them just want to ask us a few questions because they're not sure of something. Hey, they will come in and they'll say, my landlord's doing this. Is this legal?
Yeah.
Hey, they might want to ask that, So, they're not all here to come in there, and they don't all want to necessarily file a civil action or anything. But this is a very important thing because so what the Law Society does is just kind of garners different things. They kind of track the profession, the nature of the profession, who we are, who are the members of the profession, and what kind of areas of practice do people have, what are their focus, and that sort of thing. So that's one of the things that that is very important to deal with, that when people are working in this profession.
Okay, here's a quick thing for you. In May of 23, the LSO introduced a weekly mandatory minimum compensation of $620 for articling lawyers.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, because what has happened in the past is that for most of the places where lawyers went and articled, most of them actually compensated them and paid them. Hey, but some places they just said, I don't have to pay them. They're free labor. And that's not right, because you do have to spend a considerable amount of time articling. And there are some exceptions they have, but for the most part, this compensation now applies. For people who are
articling is typically extended for more than a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and you generally go with a law firm. Like many times people will article at the same law firm that they might have worked in a summer job at.
Yeah.
And try to get in. And then if there's a shortage of articling positions or you have trouble, there's other alternatives, such as a law practice program at Metropolitan University.
Yeah. And the law practice program isn't exempt from paying that money either.
Yeah, they got to pay you too, because you're doing jobs, you're doing work.
Yeah.
And you're learning at the same time. So there's some value at both ends.
Yeah, at the moment, obviously, remember that a an articling program, as I say, takes about a year. With paralegals, the placement program for paralegals is basically about a month's worth of placement, and there's no requirement for paralegals to be paid.
Yeah.
Placement.
Yeah, we've been looking at different things because, like even the paralegals group, we've been looking, saying that maybe there should be longer placements or
I
maybe
agree
longer
with that.
schooling,
Yeah,
and have kind of like a work study program involved because many people have come to the opinion that there are some things that paralegals who are just coming through school actually haven't learned, and then they bring what they haven't learned into practice. And so we have to be very good. So this is why I always try to take some people who are newly licensed as well as people who have some more experience. And the newly licensed ones who come to join us, we tend to give them a lot more hand holding and a lot more training and teaching, that sort of thing. But the ones who come in and they have some experience, and and we try to work with them to gain other experience, or maybe to try different other areas of practice and so forth. And we do have regular students here,
yeah.
and law clerks as well. We do have law clerks come in.
Yeah, we've had some law clerk students as well. But again, there's no impact upon the payment for law clerk students. Although one of the things I note is that we were talking with a new law clerk graduate who's looking at some form of a placement, but B, some form of government sponsored placement that allows him to get get to work in the law firm, but have his hours covered by a government program.
Yep. And we are looking for that because we're always open minded and we want to hear other ideas. If there's some other ideas that
Yeah,
people have, or our community partners have, we're always open to see how we can be more effective and how we can be part of training and training new people and to bringing them in.
yeah. Okay. So I think we've had a review there of a number of things that are happening within the legal area this week, and just really wanted to kind of, as a slightly different approach to our show this time. And as always, if you need to contact us, you can do so at Invictus Legal LLP on 905 688 5598. Email Angela at angela@weareinvictus.legal, or me at peter@weareinvictus.legal, or go visit our website right there, https weareinvictus.legal.
Yep, we are Invictus. You remember, it's like Prince Harry and the Invictus Games.
Okay, and that brings us to Angela's favorite part of the show.
Okay, what you hear today and what you've heard on previous episodes of Spin Legal is not legal advice and should not be construed as legal advice, because I don't want to hear that you said on Spin Legal that this was no, because it's not legal advice. If you have something specific, that applies to you, if you have different questions that you want to ask, or something that would apply to a specific situation you're facing, it's best that you contact a paralegal or a lawyer to ask them, and or to come in and do a consultation with us. Prefer you to come to us, but however, you can go to whoever as a paralegal or a lawyer and get that legal advice that you need.
Yeah. And in doing that, then basically you can figure out where your problem needs to lead to, and what exactly that. Our program was more a look through some legal stories that were there, and some of those stories were very, very serious. And if that applies to you, yeah, you definitely need to be going and calling somebody. Obviously, if you want to ring us, that's fine. But if you want to ring somebody around the corner from you, that's fine as well.
Yep.
All right.
There's lots of us out there. We're everywhere.
That's what they just said. 42,000 lawyers and 4,000 paralegals. There we
Yep.
go. You got a good choice there. And hey,
Variety.
we don't know all of those lawyers or paralegals. Well, Angela probably knows 51.9% of them.
Oh yes, probably.
Right. I know 2.7% of them.
Yeah. So you counted them, eh? You counted them.
Yeah. I've got them in a catalog,
Oh yes.
Right. So there we go. So if you need legal advice, obviously go speak with a lawyer or a paralegal. And I hope you have a great day. And Angela?
Have a great day, and we'll see you.